Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast for South America, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Let's spend a moment at the beginning of this catching up on the weather over the last week. So this animation here is showing you satellite drive precipitation. I want to take note specifically about parts of Argentina, where if you look down here, throughout much of Argentina, we didn't see much precipitation. If you just watch that one more time with me, what I do want you to see is that through the Buenos Aires province, right over here, we did get more toward the end of the time period. So see, this was pretty far to the west. And then we did have a front that slid through here, but really targeted Buenos Aires more than it did the rest of Argentina's growing area. Now I want to do that so we can just go and look at the satellite-derived estimations, which are over there on the right. Now remember, if we talk about Argentina first, this was the area that we largely didn't see much precipitation. So this is kind of critical area here from Santa Fe over toward Cordoba, with the heaviest rains closer to the Andes Mountains getting here in the west. But we do notice that there was measured here from satellite quite a bit of heavy rain down in, like I said, in Buenos Aires province. Now let's go north of there, and I want to get basically right here from Rio Grande do Sul through Paraná, Mato Grosso do Sul, up into Mato Grosso. Now remember, the farther north you go into this area, typical colors that we'd see on this map if everything was normal would be in this 2 to almost 5 inch range. Sometimes you can get that much into this area. So we can see that there was a drier pocket in through here and some drier regions, very scattered monsoonal precipitation, even over into parts of Bahia, Minas Gerais, and then getting down here toward Paraná. So overall, we would say that the monsoon was going, but it wasn't necessarily going full steam here. And we ask ourselves, was that forecast? So that's what you've been seeing over here on the left-hand side. This was the forecast for the last week up through January 7th, or today. And we did see that there was a favoring of a drier bias here, maybe a 1/2 inch to 1.5 inches, missing out on the precipitation. The models did not pick up, though, on the heavier rainfall that did come through Buenos Aires down here. But it did kind of really suggest well that the heaviest precip was going to be to the west. So we're just doing this to get a sense on how well the models have been doing with the forecast here. I'd like to now catch you up on a few graphics that I've been showing you for quite some time now. Now this is only going to be for Mato Grosso, but what we're looking at here is going through the end of 2020, how the precipitation really stacked up. So 2020 is this bottom solid line, and this would be the normal rate of accumulation. And all the other lines, especially the gray ones here, this actually goes back over the last 40 years. And so again, we see that in general through this point of the year, there's about a 20-inch, almost a 20-inch deficit on average across Mato Grosso in terms of total accumulated precipitation. But as we know, in this part of the monsoonal flow, it's all about the timing. And what I want to do is to understand that is look at this figure, which shows you the daily precipitation measured from the CPC. So here we go with the late arrival of the monsoon back in September. Kind of came in fits and starts here at the beginning of October. Then it was quite wet from the stretch of October 15th through November the 1st. That's right in through here. We then had the very dry time period in early November, the end of November, beginning of December, which was here. And then we had another good wet stretch into this area. And then mid-December, we had the drier time period. And then we just came off of a drier time period. So remember, when we look back over the last 40 years of CPC data, we would say that for this region, it is the driest that we've observed, again, using that data set. This is just an update, too, on the latest GRACE. This is satellite-based root zone soil moisture. And there is a significant part, as measured from satellite, where we do have under 5% soil moisture being measured here. So this has got us concerned just overall as we're trying to harvest some of the earliest soybeans here as to what the conditions have been like going into this harvest time period. You do see pockets of drier conditions in Argentina as well. Now, as we get into the forecast, there's a few competing factors here. We do see over there on the left that the extended outlook of from the ECMWF over the next 45 days here for the MJO is that initially it's going to pop out over here into phase 3, so in this area. So we would think about phase 3 not really having strong correlations with precipitation patterns. The strongest correlations are phase 8 and 1 and 2, and then also phase 5. But I do notice that overall the MJO is favoring over the next month to stay on this side of the diagram, which we would generally say would favor drier conditions for Brazil. But remember, the Arctic oscillation is positive and the La Nina is peaking, and so we can't necessarily rely on the MJO to be our strongest correlation. So to show you what's going on here, you can look at these maps in several different ways, but remember the color shading here, the blues and the cooler colors represent rising motion, the warmer colors represent subsidence, sinking motion in the atmosphere. And what I notice is this: the MJO tends to want to kind of move out of phase 2 and 3 and over toward phase 4 and 5 later. But the question is, does that really bring in suppressing motion here? And I think the reason why it's not showing up really well, in other words, we're not seeing these kind of colors sitting right on top of South America, is because of the nose right here of the stronger trade winds is keeping most of that subsidence here and here. You see that? So the difference is, a matter of maybe a few hundred miles is getting away from a lot more subsidence in the upper levels of the atmosphere. So let's get into the translation of that. During the next week, we still see, compared to normal rainfall, deficits in Brazil's north and central growing areas. But there is a system coming through early next week that's going to drag a front right through Argentina's main growing area. So we're going to see a good chance at seeing some rainfall and some thunderstorm activity into that area. So overall, the forecast for Argentina in the next 7 days is favorable. The monsoonal flow, when you get back into Brazil here, we do pick up, the models picking up on a few drier pockets, specifically in Rio Grande do Sul and Paraná. But overall, I do want you to see that we're going to kind of finish what could be our 6th drier time period right here. Because as we get into week 2, which is over here on the right, the models have been pretty consistent, despite what the teleconnections are saying, with bringing in wetter conditions across much of Argentina here. And then you can also see the monsoon is expected to be kind of overperforming, bringing in wetter conditions as we work our way out toward the middle of the month. Now, to finish this video up, I wanted to show you the latest European weeklies forecast, taking you for the time period of January 15th through February 15th. And the model is very aggressive on being wet across almost all of Brazil's growing area. Interesting to see that it's showing up with a dry forecast in Argentina. It's done that multiple times. So we have to look at this and ask ourselves, how well has the model been performing? So let's do a verification of December. Over here on the right, this is the CPC rain gauge data. Now remember, we don't have a very dense network of rain gauges supplementing this product. So we have to kind of look at this and understand that it will have biases to it, just given the disparity of weather stations here. But the model was forecasting dry north with a wet corridor south in Brazil and over toward Paraguay, but then here maybe wetter into Buenos Aires, but dry across Cordoba, Santa Fe, those regions in Argentina. Now, can we say that the model did pretty well? Well, yes and no. It was drier here, but we may not have accurately captured how wet it was inside of this region, but you do see wetter signals in there. And it was drier to the south, and as you notice, as you get down here, where the model said it was going to be wetter, we did have those conditions showing up there. So I have to say that the weeklies, the European weeklies, are doing a good job with South America. The monthlies are not. This was the seasonal forecast. Now, we're doing a 3-month outlook here. This was October, November, December, and this was the verification over there on the right of October, November, December. And while the models called for the driest core to be here with wetter conditions coming in there, well, you can see over here on the CPC data that was not necessarily, the picture well captured here. We were drier to the north, and this tongue of moisture here didn't really manifest itself quite in the way that was thought. So weekly's doing better than the monthlies, but I do want to show you the latest long range for the monthlies. We have to look at it. So this is February, March, and April. A couple of areas showing up on the drier side of things. My concerns are now coming down here to Argentina, kind of in a big way, because we do expect for wetter conditions to stay here. Now, this is very much a La Nina look at February, March, and April for South America. And this, I think, needs to be the map we continue to measure against as we go through these months to see if we do have drier risks south. But a big concern I have, let me just step you back here, is that if we do go over wet in this area, models are picking up on a +4 to +5 inch surplus of rainfall in that area. That's like getting an extra week's worth of rainfall over the next month. I just will be concerned about maybe what that might do to hamper harvest efforts. We'll just have to watch it and keep a close eye, okay? Appreciate your attention this week. Talk to you again on Monday. Thanks.